Maya was a quiet girl. She had always been quiet. She was the type of person who preferred to sit in the back of the classroom, blending into the shadows. Most of the students never really noticed her. They didn't pick on her, but they didn't include her either. She didn't mind. She liked it that way. At school, Maya's silence was often misunderstood. People thought she was shy or timid, but that wasn't it. Maya was simply a thinker. She liked to observe. While other kids were busy laughing and chatting, she was paying attention to everything around her. She noticed the way people treated each other, the little details that others missed. Maya knew more than anyone thought. But there was something else about her. It wasn't just her quietness. Maya had a strength within her, a strength she kept hidden deep inside. She never showed it to anyone, not even her closest friends. She kept it locked away, like a secret she didn't know how to share. She knew that the world didn't always value quiet people, so she tried her best to stay unnoticed. However, there were times when Maya wished she could be different. Times when she wanted to shout at the world and tell everyone what she thought. But those moments were few and far between. Instead, she focused on getting through the day. Every morning, she walked to school alone, her backpack slung over her shoulder. She would pass the groups of laughing kids, their loud voices echoing through the halls, and keep her head down. No one bothered her, and she liked it that way. But things began to change one afternoon. It started when she left school and found herself walking down the same street she always did. It was a quiet street, with big houses on either side. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows on the pavement. Maya liked walking home this way. It gave her time to think, to reflect on her day. As she walked, Maya noticed a group of police officers standing by a car in front of a small convenience store. They were laughing, joking with each other, their badges shining in the sunlight. But then, one of the officers noticed her walking by. His eyes narrowed as he looked at her. "Hey, look at that one," he said, loud enough for Maya to hear. "She's always so quiet. Think she's better than the rest of us." Maya froze. The words cut through her like a knife. She had heard people say things about her before, but never like this. She kept walking, trying to ignore him, but the officer's voice followed her. "You think you're too good for us, huh?" The officer continued, sneering. "You don't belong here. You don't even talk to anyone." Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to turn around and tell him off, but the words wouldn't come. She was frozen, standing there, feeling his eyes on her like a heavy weight. She felt the sting of his words, but she didn't respond. She couldn't. She just kept walking, faster now, hoping to get away from him. She kept her head down, trying not to cry. She hated that she was so quiet, that she let people walk all over her, but it was easier to stay quiet than to fight back. She had learned that a long time ago. As she hurried down the street, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. She wasn't just the quiet girl anymore. The officer's words echoed in her mind, and she couldn't stop thinking about them. They made her question everything she had believed about herself. Was she weak? Was she really just someone who didn't belong? When she got home, Maya tried to push the thoughts away. She told herself that it didn't matter, that the officer was just being cruel for no reason. But deep down, she knew that it did matter. It mattered more than she cared to admit. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the incident over and over in her mind. Why hadn't she said anything? Why had she let him get away with it? She felt a burning frustration inside her, a desire to fight back, but she didn't know how. What Maya didn't know, what no one knew, was that she was about to find out what true strength really was. She wasn't just a quiet girl anymore. There was more to her than anyone could see. The strength inside her was waiting to be unleashed, and soon it would come in a way no one could have ever predicted. The next day, Maya walked to school with a sense of determination. She still didn't know what to expect, but she knew that things were about to change. She could feel it in the air. Something was going to happen. Something big. Maya just hoped she would be ready for it. The morning after the incident with the police officer, Maya tried to push the experience out of her mind. She was used to being invisible, to not standing out, and today she just wanted to get through the day like she always did. She walked to school with the usual slouch in her shoulders, her head down, trying to blend in with the rest of the students rushing to class. But as she passed the group of boys in the hallway, she caught a glimpse of a familiar face, her dad. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Her father was standing in the doorway of her school's main office, talking to the principal. His uniform was spotless, the brass buttons on his military jacket gleaming in the sunlight. Maya's father was a soldier, always so proud of his service to the country. But seeing him here, at school, wasn't a good sign. Something was off. She stood frozen in the hallway, her breath catching in her throat. Her dad had never come to school before, and she had no idea why he would be here now. He wasn't supposed to be on base today. The only thing she could think of was that he had come because of the fight with the officer the day before, but why would he be here for that? Before Maya could gather her thoughts, her dad turned around and caught sight of her standing there. A look of concern flashed across his face, but he quickly masked it with a warm smile. "Maya," he called out, waving. "Come over here, sweetheart." Maya took a few steps toward him, her heart beating faster with every step. Her dad's presence was a calming influence. But today, she felt the tension in the air. Something didn't feel right. The principal, a tall man with a sharp suit and a stern expression, was standing next to her father. He didn't seem happy to see Maya's dad. In fact, he seemed downright uncomfortable. Maya could feel her palms sweating as she reached them. "Maya, this is Principal Thompson," her father said, his voice steady but his eyes flickering toward the principal. The principal forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm aware of your father's service, Maya," he said, looking at her with a cool gaze. "But we need to talk about something serious." Maya's stomach twisted into knots. This didn't sound good. She knew that whatever was about to happen would change everything, but she had no idea what was coming. "Is everything okay?" Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Her father gave her a reassuring smile, but his eyes betrayed a quiet anger. "We'll talk about it later, Maya. Just go back to class for now." The principal didn't say anything more as he turned to leave. Maya felt the unease growing in the pit of her stomach as she watched him walk away. Her father's eyes followed the principal, and for a moment, there was a tension between them that Maya couldn't explain. Maya didn't have the courage to ask what had just happened. Instead, she turned and walked back down the hall toward her classroom, the whispers of her classmates ringing in her ears. Everyone was talking about her now. Maya felt the heat of their stares, but she kept walking, her head low, as she had always done. As the day dragged on, Maya couldn't stop thinking about the way her father had acted. What was he doing here? And why had the principal been so uncomfortable around him? At lunch, Maya sat alone in the cafeteria. She didn't have many friends, and she preferred it that way. But today, the isolation felt heavier than usual. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, something that would turn her quiet world upside down. Later that afternoon, as she was packing up her things to leave, a teacher came into the room with an envelope. She handed it directly to Maya. "Special delivery for you," the teacher said with a strange smile. Maya's heart skipped a beat. What was this? Why was the teacher looking at her like that? Maya opened the envelope slowly, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was a piece of official-looking paper. Her eyes scanned the words, trying to make sense of them. It was a letter. A letter from her father's commanding officer. Maya's mouth went dry as she read the words. "We regret to inform you that due to your father's distinguished service, and based on recent events, we are providing a special request for him to attend a private meeting with the mayor and key community leaders. His presence has been requested for an urgent matter concerning the safety and security of the school." Maya's mind was spinning. What could this mean? As she walked out of the classroom, her thoughts raced. Was it about the incident with the police officer? What did her father have to do with the mayor and the community leaders? Just then, Maya's phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket and saw a message from her dad. "Meet me at the car, Maya. I'll explain everything." Her heart skipped a beat. What was going on? Why was he being so secretive? Maya hurried out of the building, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. She reached the parking lot and saw her father standing near the car, his face serious. The tension between them seemed to grow with every step she took toward him. "Maya, we need to talk," her father said, his voice low and urgent. Maya's heart hammered in her chest as she reached him, the fear of the unknown hanging in the air. She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of something that would change her life forever. Maya's mind raced as she stood in the parking lot, facing her father. The tension in the air was thick, like a storm waiting to break. The unanswered questions swirled around her. What had happened at school? Why had her father come in the first place? What was in the letter? And what was going on with the principal and the mayor? Her father opened the car door, gesturing for her to get in. He had a look of seriousness that Maya had never seen before. Her dad was always calm, always steady, but now his face was drawn, his brows furrowed in a way that made Maya's stomach churn. "Come on, sweetheart," he said gently. "We need to talk." Maya hesitated for a moment before sliding into the passenger seat. Her father got in and started the engine, the low rumble of the car adding to the uneasy silence that hung between them. As they drove through the quiet streets, Maya tried to keep her composure, but the anxiety was overwhelming. She had never seen her dad like this, so distant, so heavy with something she couldn't understand. She couldn't keep her questions inside any longer. "Dad," Maya said softly, her voice trembling. "What's going on? Why were you at school today? And what's this about the mayor and community leaders?" Her father glanced at her briefly, his eyes filled with an unreadable emotion, before focusing back on the road. He was silent for a long moment, as if deciding how much to say. "Maya," he began, his voice steady but low. "Sometimes life throws challenges at us that we can't predict. And sometimes those challenges make people see us differently. I know you've been through a lot, and I don't want you to feel like you're alone. But right now, there's something bigger happening." Maya looked at him, confusion still clouding her mind. "What do you mean, bigger?" Her father sighed deeply. He seemed to be gathering his thoughts, the weight of the situation clear in the way his shoulders sagged slightly. "I'm not just your father, Maya," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "I'm a man who serves something much greater than myself. I've been in the military for a long time, and my service has earned me a certain respect. But that respect hasn't always been given to me by the right people. And now something has happened." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She had no idea what her father was talking about. She had known him as a loving father, a man who worked hard to support his family, and a soldier who did his duty. But this was something new, something mysterious. "Dad," she said, her voice shaky, "what's happened?" Her father's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I'm not just a soldier, Maya. I've been doing something else for a long time. Something that no one knows about. There's a reason why the mayor is involved, and why the principal's so uneasy. Something has been uncovered, and now it's all coming to light." Maya's heart thudded loudly in her chest. "What do you mean something has been uncovered?" Her father glanced at her, his eyes filled with a complex mixture of pride and sadness. "You're about to find out. What's been hidden for so long is finally being revealed. The people at that school, the ones who mocked you, they don't understand who I really am. And now they're going to have to." The car slowed to a stop at a red light, and her father turned to face her fully, his gaze intense. "I've been working with the government on a secret project for years, Maya. But what you don't know is that it's something bigger than you or me. It's something that could change the way people see our country. It could change the way they see us." Maya sat frozen, her mind trying to process what he was saying. A secret project. The government. Was her dad really involved in something so important? something so hidden. She couldn't quite grasp it. She had always seen him as just her dad, the one who came home after long days of work, the one who cooked dinner, and the one who drove her to school. But now it seemed like there was a whole other side to him that she had never known. Before she could say anything else, her father spoke again, his voice firm. "You remember how you felt yesterday when the officer treated you unfairly. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Maya. But what you don't know is that those officers aren't the only ones who are going to regret it. The truth is coming out, and it's not just about me. It's about people who've been hiding things for years. Things that affect all of us." Maya was silent, her thoughts racing. She had never thought much about what her father did outside of the house, but now she could sense that his life was far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. What was this project? Why hadn't he told her about it before? And why was it all coming to light now? The car came to a stop in front of their house, but Maya barely noticed. Her mind was still reeling from everything her father had just revealed. "Maya," her father said, breaking her thoughts, "I need you to trust me. What you're about to see in the coming days will shock you. But it's important, and I need you to be strong." Maya nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what was coming, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life was about to change. Her father wasn't just the man she thought he was. He was something far greater, and the world was about to see it. As they walked inside the house, Maya felt a weight settle in her chest. The truth was coming, but she had no idea what it would mean for her, her family, or the world around them. The quiet girl who had always been invisible was about to step into a world of secrets, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days after that conversation felt like an endless blur. Maya couldn't shake the sense that something huge was about to happen. Her father's words echoed in her mind constantly. "The truth is coming out, and it's not just about me. It's about people who've been hiding things for years." Maya hadn't spoken much about the incident at school after her father's revelation. She still couldn't wrap her mind around the idea that her father had been part of something so secretive, so important. The weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest, but she couldn't bring herself to ask him any more questions. Not yet. Something in her told her that it wasn't the right time. The morning after the unsettling conversation, everything began to change. As Maya walked to school, she noticed a shift in the air. The usual sounds of the busy neighborhood seemed quieter. People walked with their heads down, exchanging hurried glances. Her school, once a place she dreaded, but at least felt somewhat secure in, now felt like a looming shadow. As she neared the gates, her stomach twisted. The kids who had mocked her, the ones who laughed at her, weren't there. It was strange. The parking lot that was usually full of cars had only a few left, and there was a tension in the air that she could almost taste. When she entered the school building, the silence was overwhelming. The hallways were almost empty, and there was a strange buzz of anticipation. As she made her way to her locker, a few students glanced at her, their eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and caution. It felt as though something big was about to happen, something everyone was expecting but didn't want to say out loud. Maya's first class was unusually quiet, too. The teacher, usually a stickler for routine, seemed distracted. Every now and then, she would glance at the door as if waiting for something, or rather someone. Maya felt the heavy weight of the eyes on her as the entire class seemed to be waiting for something to break. It was after lunch that everything changed. The principal, Mr. Hamilton, had always been stern, but today his usual controlled composure was gone. He entered the cafeteria, his face pale, and his steps hurried. Students stopped talking when they saw him, the buzz of whispers dying down to nothing. Mr. Hamilton stood at the front of the room, his hands shaking as he gripped the microphone. "Attention, students," he began, his voice wavering slightly. "We have just received some very important news. Please, everyone, remain calm." His words barely reached Maya, but the undertones of worry in his voice sent a chill down her spine. Before anyone could react, The sound of a helicopter hovering outside the school broke through the tension like a clap of thunder. Everyone in the cafeteria scrambled to the windows, trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening. Maya's heart raced. She ran to the window too, her eyes squinting as she tried to make out what was going on. The helicopter landed in the school parking lot with a loud thud, and from it, several men in suits stepped out, followed by a familiar face. Her father. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Her father stood there in his military uniform, but this time, there was something different about him. His posture was straighter, more commanding. He wasn't the same man who had been quietly working behind the scenes. He was someone else entirely. The students in the cafeteria stared in shock. Whispers erupted like wildfire. "Who is that?" One student muttered. "Why is he here?" Someone else asked, confusion and excitement mixing in their voices. But Maya didn't care about the questions. She was frozen in place, her eyes locked on her father. What was he doing here? Why had he come in such a dramatic way? What did this all mean? The helicopter engines roared as it lifted off, but Maya couldn't tear her eyes away from the scene outside. Her father was walking toward the school entrance, flanked by several men in black suits. There was an air of authority around him that was unmistakable. Suddenly, a voice behind her broke her trance. Maya. It was one of her classmates, a girl she had never really talked to before, but now she seemed desperate to get her attention. "Maya, you need to see this." Maya turned around, her face pale. "See what?" "Look at this," the girl said, holding up her phone. The screen flashed with a breaking news headline. "Billionaire and former military officer exposes corruption in local government." Maya felt her legs go weak as she read the article summary. Her father, a billionaire, a former military officer. What was happening? Without waiting for an explanation, Maya ran out of the cafeteria and down the hallway, her feet barely touching the ground as she hurried toward the main entrance. As she approached, she saw her father standing with Mr. Hamilton and the mayor of the town. The three of them were engaged in an intense conversation, and her father's demeanor was firm, commanding, almost like he was in charge. Maya hesitated before walking up to them. She couldn't fully process everything that had just happened, but she needed answers. She needed to know what her father was doing here, why everyone was looking at him like he was a hero, or maybe something more. Her father turned as he noticed her, his face softening just for a moment. "Maya," he said, his voice steady. "I've been waiting for you." The mayor, who had been speaking with her father, turned to her as well, his face a mix of shock and awe. "You must be Maya," he said. "I've heard so much about you. I'm glad you're here." Maya's mind was spinning. The words felt like they were coming at her too fast, too much to process. "Dad, what's going on? What's all this about?" Her father took a deep breath and placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's time, Maya. Everything I've been working on, everything that's been hidden for so long, it's all coming out now." Before she could ask more, her father turned to face the crowd of students and teachers who had gathered outside the entrance. He was about to speak, and Maya knew that whatever he said next, it would change everything. Maya stood there, frozen, her mind racing. Her father's sudden appearance at the school, the helicopter, the suits, none of it made sense. The quiet, humble man she knew seemed like someone completely different now. The crowd of students had gathered outside the entrance, their faces full of confusion and curiosity, but no one spoke a word. The entire school seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for something monumental to happen. Maya's father took a step forward, standing tall in his military uniform, his eyes scanning the crowd. The suited men beside him remained silent, but Maya could feel the weight of their presence. This wasn't just a visit. It was something much more. "I know many of you are wondering who I am and why I'm here." Her father's voice rang out, clear and steady. It wasn't loud, but there was an undeniable authority in it that made everyone listen. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. "I am Lieutenant Colonel James Carter, but what matters most is what I've been fighting for all these years." There was a hushed murmur among the students, but they kept their eyes fixed on him, captivated. For years, her father continued, I've been working undercover, fighting against corruption in our local government, the same system that has made life harder for families like ours. It's time for that to end. Maya felt the weight of his words like a hammer hitting her chest. This wasn't just about him being her father. He wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who had been fighting a battle in secret, and now it was all coming to light. Her father's gaze turned to the principal, Mr. Hamilton, and the mayor who had been standing beside him. The mayor's face was pale, his hands twitching nervously at his sides. The corruption you've been part of, Mayor Thompson, is over, her father declared. The world will know the truth. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen her father speak with such conviction. It was as though the calm, quiet man she knew was gone, replaced by someone who had spent years in the shadows, preparing for this moment. The mayor tried to speak, but her father raised his hand, cutting him off. Your time is up, he said simply. You thought you could silence people like us, keep the truth buried. But now, the world will see it all. Maya's head was spinning. Her father wasn't just revealing corruption. He was bringing down the system that had allowed people like the mayor to get away with their actions for so long. The entire town had been deceived, and her father was the one who had uncovered it all. The crowd of students gasped, whispering among themselves. The news would spread like wildfire. Maya could feel their eyes on her now, as though she were part of something much bigger than herself. Dad, Maya whispered, still trying to wrap her mind around it all. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep it from me? Her father's expression softened as he looked down at her, his voice quieter now, filled with a tenderness that made Maya's heart ache. I wanted to protect you, Maya. I never wanted you to be a part of this world. But the time for silence is over. It's time for the truth to come out. As the helicopter in the distance began to ascend again, a news van pulled into the parking lot, reporters and cameras following close behind. The entire school was buzzing with energy now, and it felt as though the world was watching them. Maya's father turned to her one last time, his face filled with pride. This isn't just my fight anymore, he said. It's ours. Maya didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she felt something shift deep inside her. She had always known her father was special, but now she realized just how much of a difference one person could make. The quiet man she thought she knew was a hero. He was fighting for justice, for their family, and for everyone who had been wronged. As her father walked past her to speak with the reporters, Maya stood still, taking it all in. She had witnessed a moment that would change the course of their lives, and she knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning. The truth had finally been unleashed, and nothing would ever be the same again.